Gold mining isn't just about machines, dirt, and sluices. It's about secrets, rivalries, and gambles that can make or break entire families. And what you're about to see is the boldest move ever made in the Yukon. Kevin Beets, the quiet son living in his father's shadow, is about to attempt the unthinkable, outsmart Tony Beets himself, and pull millions in gold from right under his nose. Before we dive in, don't forget to like this video and subscribe. It helps us keep sharing the untold stories from the heart of the Klondike. It all started with something small. A few forgotten papers buried deep in an old filing cabinet. Geological reports from decades ago, stained with coffee and time. Tony had looked at them once and laughed, calling them junk science not worth a drop of diesel. But Kevin saw something else. Hidden between the lines were hints of strange anomalies, magnetic distortions, soil disturbances, clues that something precious might lie buried deep below the glacial rock. Something his father had missed. Kevin didn't make an announcement. He knew better than to go head-to-head with Tony. Instead, he framed it as a harmless side experiment, an academic curiosity. But behind that calm face, his ambition was burning hot. Quietly, he handpicked a few trusted men, miners who were tired of Tony's iron rule, who wanted a chance to prove themselves. Together, they formed a small, secret crew. This wasn't just about striking gold. For Kevin, it was about legacy, about finally stepping out from his father's shadow. Soon, whispers spread through camp. The Beets family runs on loyalty and gossip. Kevin's breaking rank. He's wasting fuel. He's playing with fire. Tony heard every word. Loud, proud, and larger than life, he mocked Kevin in front of everyone. Dreamer without guts, he called him, still playing miner in a man's world. The laughter hurt. But Kevin didn't react. He stayed silent, patient, focused. He wouldn't win this fight with noise. He'd win it with precision. The camp began to split. Old hands stayed loyal to Tony, but others, quietly, drifted toward Kevin. They saw something new in him, confidence, purpose, and a spark of rebellion. And then, the spark caught fire. It happened when Kevin uncovered a map, old, weathered, edges torn and faded. To anyone else, it was just a relic. But Kevin saw meaning in the lines, tiny bends in the tributaries marked with strange symbols. He compared it with modern LIDAR scans, laying history over technology. That's when the truth revealed itself. Hidden bedrock traps that no one had ever touched. Gold had been sitting there for generations, invisible to heavy machinery, waiting for someone clever enough to see it. Kevin rolled the map tight, sealed it in oilskin, and kept it secret. If Tony found out, there would be war. That night, under the cold Yukon moon, Kevin's plan came alive. While the camp slept, his strike team moved like shadows. Engines ran in short, muffled bursts. Excavators crept through the mud, wrapped in tarps and silence. By morning, everything looked normal. Just another quiet day in the Klondike. But hidden behind the tree line, something revolutionary was happening. Fuel was the hardest part. Tony tracked diesel like a hawk. Every missing drop could expose the operation. So Kevin rerouted it, logging the fuel under maintenance reports in Tony's own name. Every shovelful of dirt wasn't just digging for gold. It was defiance. Every spark of the engine was rebellion. And every man working in that shadowed pit knew one thing for sure. They weren't just mining a claim. They were mining freedom. Tony Beets had made a lifetime out of pushing men past their limits. But this time, his own pride pushed him too far. At dawn, he ordered his crew to dig deeper, ignoring warnings about unstable ground. He wanted answers, proof, and if that meant tearing half the valley apart, so be it. The excavator roared to life, its bucket biting into layers of permafrost like a beast waking from hibernation. Kevin watched from a distance, every nerve on fire. One wrong scoop, One more foot, and Tony would hit the richest cut in the Yukon, the very one Kevin had uncovered in secret. The earth began to shudder, ice cracked, a deep rumble echoed from beneath the machines. "Shut it down!" someone yelled. But Tony didn't listen. He was too close. Seconds later, the ground gave way. A sinkhole opened beneath the excavator's treads, swallowing half the bucket and sending a wave of mud crashing down the slope. Men shouted and scattered. Tony leapt from the cab just as the machine lurched sideways, groaning under its own weight. The roar of collapsing earth faded into stunned silence. Then, nothing but the hiss of steam and the slow drip of muddy water. Kevin sprinted toward the chaos, shouting for his father. Tony was alive, covered in mud, furious, but shaken. For the first time, the king of the Klondike looked uncertain. Tony barked, staring at the smoking crater. Kevin froze. He knew exactly what was under there, the edge of his secret cut, the one his crew had been mining for weeks. One more meter, and Tony would have hit gold. Kevin's gold. Thinking fast, Kevin waved his men forward. "Backfill it! Now!" he yelled. "It's a sink pocket, Dad!" Glacial runoff. Unstable. Tony scowled, still glaring at the pit, but his instincts for survival overrode suspicion. "Fine. Seal it up. I don't want anyone near this area till I say so." As the dozers pushed earth back into the wound, Kevin felt his knees weaken with relief. He'd escaped discovery by seconds, but even as the ground was covered, he knew the danger wasn't gone. It was just buried deeper. That night, as the camp lights flickered across pools of meltwater, Kevin sat alone beside the silent sluice. The hidden crates of gold lay safe, for now. But his victory no longer felt like triumph. He'd beaten Tony at his own game, yet the cost was growing heavier by the day. Lies, tension, sleepless nights, and a secret that could destroy the Beets' legacy if ever revealed. Still, as he watched the Yukon moon rise above the valley, casting silver light over the machines and mud, a small, defiant smile crept across his face. Because no matter what happened next, for one fleeting moment in the frozen north, Kevin Beets had done the impossible. He had outsmarted the king of the Klondike. And somewhere beneath that scarred earth, the Yukon kept its secret, gleaming, silent, and waiting for the next move. One evening, Tony stormed into Kevin's sector, mud flying off his boots, rage burning in his eyes. "What the hell are you doing here?" he roared, accusing his son of theft, mismanagement, and lies before the entire crew. His voice cracked across the valley, raw with suspicion. Kevin, standing calmly by the sluice, met his father's fury with quiet composure. He spoke of sluice redesigns, experimental tests, half-truths wrapped in enough technical jargon to sound convincing. For a tense moment, the camp held its breath. Then Tony laughed, a booming, mocking laugh that echoed through the Yukon night. "My boy thinks he's a scientist," he bellowed. The men laughed with him, but behind Tony's laughter, Kevin caught something sharper. Doubt. That night, Tony acted. He sent one of his most loyal men to spy on Kevin's camp. The man hid in the trees, watching trucks come and go, engines humming in the distance. But Kevin was 2 steps ahead. Decoy trucks rumbled down empty trails, their headlights slicing through the dark, leading the spy far from the truth. When the report came back, Tony heard only of wasted fuel and empty halls. For now, Kevin's secret was safe. For now, the king had been fooled. But the Yukon doesn't keep secrets forever. One dawn, when frost still clung to the earth, Kevin's hidden cut roared to life. Excavators tore into pay dirt so rich the sluices choked. Gravel poured like rivers of fire, and the mats gleamed with thick, solid bands of gold. Pans came up heavy, not with dust, but with slabs and nuggets that clinked against steel. Some were the size of fists, glowing in the cold light like captured suns. Men dropped their tools. They stared in stunned silence. The jackpot had ignited. Kevin stood by the sluices, boots sinking into gold-flecked mud, breath sharp in the frozen air. This wasn't luck. This was proof. Proof that Tony's brute force had blinded him to brilliance. Proof that precision could outmatch power. His men watched, wide-eyed, whispering like witnesses to history. They weren't just miners anymore. They were part of a rebellion worth tens of millions. The count climbed fast. 10 million, 20, 30. By the time the last tray was weighed, whispers rippled through the camp. $45 million in gold. Kevin said nothing for a long moment. Then, in a low, steady voice, he said, "This isn't luck. This is proof," and the proof glittered in every ounce hauled from the hidden cut. The king of the Klondike had been outflanked, and though he didn't know it yet, his throne was trembling. But gold never stays quiet for long. It leaves traces, mud torn by tires, water turned cloudy, whispers riding on the Yukon wind. Tony was listening. He tore through camp like a storm, barking orders, flipping ledgers, tearing through fuel logs, chasing rumors that refused to die. By the time he reached Kevin's hidden sector, the treasure was already gone. The richest pay dirt had been hauled away under the cover of night, sealed in steel crates, hidden where no drone could find them. All that remained was scarred earth, tracks in the mud, and sluice tails running cold. Tony stood there, breathing hard, rage and realization colliding in his chest. He looked at the ground, his ground, and saw what had been taken from him. Kevin hadn't just mined dirt. He had mined his father's pride. With a roar that shook the valley, Tony ripped off his helmet and slammed it into the earth. The crack of plastic against frozen ground echoed like a gunshot. "He played me like a rookie," he shouted into the night. For the first time, the king of the Klondike didn't look invincible. He looked beaten. Miles away, inside a dim canvas tent, Kevin gathered his crew. The air trembled as the steel crates were pried open, revealing a fortune that glowed in the lantern light. Nuggets, slabs, and bars spilled out in rivers of gold, each one a piece of the rebellion that had just rewritten history. The tally was staggering. $45 million. Silence fell, then whispers. Some called it betrayal, others called it destiny. Either way, a dynasty had shifted. Kevin lifted a nugget the size of his fist and spoke quietly. "This isn't about gold," he said. "It's about proving we can lead without fear." The words hit harder than the treasure itself. For the first time, the men around him saw not just Tony's son, but a leader in his own right. By dawn, the story had spread across the Yukon like wildfire. "Kevin Beets outsmarted Tony," they whispered in bars and bunkhouses, "pulled $45 million in gold right under his father's nose." Rival miners laughed at the irony. The king undone, not by competition, but by his own blood. And in every corner of the Klondike, the same question echoed. Was the throne vacant, or had it just been seized? Tony Beets raged in silence, eyes bloodshot, hands clenched. He vowed revenge, but deep down, he knew the truth. His reign was cracked, and the fracture had a name: Kevin. As the first light broke over the valley, Kevin stood at the edge of camp. The crates gleamed beside him, glowing gold in the sunrise. He wasn't Tony's shadow anymore. He was Tony's rival, the heir who had taken the crown by grit and patience. The dynasty wasn't broken. It had evolved. And as the Yukon wind carried the rumors far and wide, one truth became clear. There was a new king in the Klondike, and his name was Kevin Beets. The Beets legacy wasn't ending. It was evolving. And somewhere deep in the valley, the land itself seemed to sigh, as if acknowledging a new chapter written in mud, sweat, and gold. Because in the Yukon, kings aren't born. They're carved from the earth. Kevin Beets had carved his crown, and this was just the beginning. Kevin Beets just pulled off the impossible. $45 million in gold, hidden in plain sight, and a quiet rebellion that changed the Klondike forever. But with every strike comes a reckoning. Because in gold country, fortune always demands a price, and the Yukon isn't done testing its kings. If you want more untold stories of hidden jackpots, family feuds, and high-stakes mining gambles, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because the next chapter of the Klondike saga is already being written. This was The King Outplayed, the Beets Rebellion. Stay tuned, the Yukon never sleeps.